Hi folks, the Filipina P here. And as I often say, the Philippines isn't for everyone because there's no magical paradise or universal nirvana. If there was, everyone would be there already. Prices would be sky high, the women would all be taken, and you'd be looking somewhere else. You might have this fantasy image of the Philippines in your head, a place that's filled with gorgeous single women, where the prices are so cheap, they're almost giving things away. And maybe you've heard that the food is amazing, and it's the perfect place to retire. Well, the beautiful women part is true, but the rest is highly debatable. So if you're thinking of making the Philippines your future home, I strongly suggest that you do not retire here until you watch this video, because I'm going to point out the things you need to be aware of and can accept before you make the move. In other words, I'm going to tell you why you do not want to retire in the Philippines. So my first advice is not to even consider retiring here if you haven't thoroughly researched the Philippines. By watching videos like this one from people who actually live here and are willing to tell it like it is. You can watch documentaries about the Philippines all day long, but if they're not going to show you the bad along with the good, then they're useless as far as giving you an accurate picture of what your life will be like once you're here. In fact, not only should you research the place, you really should live here for at least a few months, preferably a lot longer if you can manage it. Because many of the following things I'm going to talk about won't become apparent right away. When you visit a new place, everything that's different from your home can seem quaint or cute at first. And you'll say silly things like, "Oh look, they ride these cool little tricycles." But after a month, you'll be looking at the exact same thing and yelling, "Get that damn thing off the road if you can't go faster than that." You need to be here long enough to throw away the rose-colored glasses and see things as they really are. So in no particular order, here are the reasons you might want to rethink your permanent destination. Now this is probably the biggest and most obvious thing, but don't retire to the Philippines if you can't afford it. I've done several budget videos, talked to hundreds of expats, and I feel very comfortable in saying that if you don't want to struggle financially, you really need a minimum of about $1,000 to $1,200 US per month for the rest of your life. Any less than that, and you might find yourself in trouble. Maybe that budget was fine when you got here, but after a few years, you added responsibilities and expenses, like a wife, kids, maybe a lot of pets. Your income didn't grow, but your expenditures did. And now you're stretched to the breaking point. I could spend a whole video talking about budget, but instead, I'll just say make sure you have sufficient income and assets to sustain yourself, because there are no safety nets here. You're on your own. Related to that, here's a big one that many foreigners just don't seem to get through their heads until it's too late. Don't come here to get a job or start a business. I cannot tell you how many expats have informed me that they're gonna supplement their income by working or opening some kind of business. And they get all excited when they tell me about their plans. Now you guys are full of great ideas, and maybe you've got plenty of experience. But opening a car rental place, a home furnishing store, or an art gallery where you can sell your own masterpieces just isn't gonna fly here, especially outside the big cities. You'll end up drowning in red tape. Your suppliers will be out of supplies most of the time. Your employees won't show up for work. And most importantly, your customers have no money. There's just no demand for anything besides the basics. You'll notice that almost every foreigner that tries to start a business here ends up opening a restaurant, a bar, a sari-sari store, or a laundromat. And there's a good reason for that, because even Filipinos need to eat, drink, and wash. The problem is, if it's a success, the locals are gonna copy you, and you'll wake up one morning to find a laundromat next door to yours and another one on the corner. Competition will drive the prices and profits down so far that everyone loses. Unfortunately, I've seen it many times, and the vast majority of the businesses fail. And as far as working for someone else, no way, no how, not a chance. Spend a month in the Philippines and tell me how many foreigners you see behind the counter. Zero. So please don't count on making any money while you're here. It's not nearly as easy as it is in the West. And since you can't earn anything, that means you need to have your finances already in order. But let's say the money part isn't a problem. You've got it figured out, and it won't be an issue. Well, there's still a lot of things here to test your patience, which brings up the topic of patience. A big factor in determining the chances of your being able to tolerate it here long term is your personality. If you're type A, who gets impatient and frustrated over the little things, do not retire to the Philippines. You'll be a really bad fit for the lifestyle here, and you'll go absolutely crazy within a few months. The bureaucracy, the lines, the inefficiency, the unwillingness to replace outdated systems, and just the general slow pace of life here is enough to send many would-be expats straight back to the airport. The culture is one of those things that might seem charming at first, but do you really want to live in a rerun of Green Acres for the rest of your life? Heaven for some, hell for others. And another reason why you want to visit here for as long as you can before pulling the trigger on your retirement plans. So if you're the kind of guy that just can't keep his temper from boiling over when he's told his car won't be repaired till next month, or maybe the month after, then don't even consider it. Just stay in a modern first world country. And for those of you that think you can bring your life with you, please do not retire in the Philippines, because it ain't gonna happen. Even if you have the money to do it, living a Western lifestyle just isn't possible in most places here because some things aren't available at any price. If you want carpeting in your place, think again. If you want central AC or a hot water heater that services the whole house, good luck with that. If you expect to be able to call a plumber and have him come out immediately to fix the water gushing from beneath your sink, then you're better off investing in a life raft than waiting for him to show up. That is, if you can even find a number for a plumber. Good luck with that too, because it's not about the money. And the same thing is true of utilities. Don't retire here if you need reliable water, internet, and electricity, because chances are you won't get them, no matter what your budget can afford. Depending on where you live, especially outside a city, your power can literally go off several times a week for hours at a time, and sometimes the whole day. So unless you have access to a solar power system or a generator, which most people don't, there are times you're gonna be absolutely miserable. Just imagine sitting inside your house, which quickly becomes hotter than an oven in the Philippine sun, with nothing to do but count the beads of sweat rolling down your face. You try to cool off by taking a shower, but your water is fed by a pump, which is also without power. So there's no water either. If you think this scenario is far-fetched or infrequent, you haven't lived in the Philippines long enough. But what you might not understand is that it can literally take you several hours to find the food you want, because the first store you go to isn't gonna have what you need. Just looking for low-fat milk, eggs, Coke Zero? Your chances of finding even half of the stuff you want is far less than the chances of this video being a hit, and that's pretty low. So after you wait for half an hour to pay for the food items you found at the third place you went, you're off to the hardware store, which is only a few blocks away, but will somehow take you another 45 minutes of 2-mile-an-hour traffic to get there and actually find a parking space. But then the fun begins. Because you can't find the right size bulbs to fit the weird lighting fixtures that your landlord installed, and when you ask for assistance, you're told that the guy who knows about light bulbs is gone for the day. You leave the store, all dejected, and notice that it's already getting dark outside, and all you have to show for your efforts is a small bag of Doritos. Not the flavor you wanted, but hey, it's the Philippines. And that brings up another thing. Don't retire here if you crave variety. You'll notice that a typical store here has plenty of aisles, but very few choices. You might see a 30-foot-long display of cereal, but it's the same two types, Cocoa Krispies and Corn Flakes. They may have lots of product, but it's all the same kind. As I often say, you don't go shopping here to buy what you want. You go shopping here to buy whatever they have. And if you don't like it, you're welcome to go wander the aisles of some other store that's got exactly the same products. And of course, don't retire in the Philippines if you want peace and quiet. You'll need to develop a noise filter, which is really hard for most foreigners. A Filipino can carry on a conversation with a pack of 10 dogs barking non-stop, literally 5 feet away, and not even be aware of them. The noise just doesn't register. Unfortunately, the same thing is true at night when you're trying to sleep, and we still don't notice it. Unless you live by yourself on a huge piece of land, surrounded by a high wall, you're gonna hear more racket than you ever had to endure in your life. If you can't sleep through it, the Philippines is not for you, because complaining about things is a big no-no. Start a loud feud with a neighbor, and although you'll probably win the shouting match, you won't win the war. Trust me, life will suddenly become very difficult for you there, and you'll discover that no one's on your side, even if you're right. But if you can manage to stay on good terms with your neighbors, tolerate all the foolishness and frustration, support yourself with an adequate budget, and embrace the culture here, you might just make it. On the other hand, if you come here thinking you can change the things I've mentioned to make your life more comfortable or more familiar to you, I have bad news for you. You will not change anything about the Philippines. The Philippines will change you. And if you're not adaptable, you're gonna wish you'd never left home. Well, that's it for this episode. And I hope I've given you a lot to think about and maybe provided you with a much-needed reality check before you plan out the next phase of your life. I'll be back on Tuesday with a topic I don't think anyone else has dealt with, and you won't want to miss it. Till then, folks. A few weeks ago, someone sent me a magazine I'd never seen before called Manila Up. It's an international publication that promotes Filipino culture all around the globe, from artists to chefs to fashion designers. With Filipinos living in just about every country on earth, a magazine like this one is a good way to keep your finger on the pulse of our heritage and traditions. I was just flipping through this issue and, wait a sec, that's me! Apparently, they did a feature piece on yours truly, complete with photos and an interview. I want to thank the columnist, Mr. Robert Womack, who wrote this article, as well as Manila Up, for even noticing a little YouTuber like me. And for any of you guys that want to read the article or check out the magazine, I'll leave a link to it to the description box. Thanks again, guys. Now let's see if they blasted me.
Are you ready? Because it's time for a word from your captain. If you've abandoned ship in the West and you're looking for a Filipino first mate, just listen to your Captain P and you'll be shouting, "There she blows," in no time at all. There's nothing like the Philippines to put a little fire in the hole. And if you join me, crew, I'll get you there, right as rain. So subscribe to my channel. Hit that notification bell so you hear about any course corrections. And check out my Patreon page for exclusive vids and features. And for all you new seamen, stay off me poop deck. Don't be asking me to blow the man down. And keep your hands off me booty.